sometimes, and maybe in the heat of a campaign, you say things and you have to dial them back. Last week, the New York Times editorial board quoted you as saying that you would impose up to a 45% tariff on Chinese goods.
That's wrong. They were wrong. It's the New York Times. They're always wrong.
Well,
they were wrong.
You never said because they provided
what I said at an editorial
remarks.
I would use, they were asking me what to do about North Korea. China, they don't like to tell us, but they have total control, just about, of North Korea. They can solve the problem of North Korea if they wanted to. But they taunt us. They say, well, we don't really have control. Without China, North Korea doesn't even eat. China is ripping us on trade. They're devaluing their currency, and they're killing our companies. Thousands and thousands. You look at the number of companies and the number in terms of manufacturing and plants that we've lost 50,000 because of China.
So now, you never advocated putting a tariff on their goods?
We've lost anywhere between 4 and 7 million jobs because of China. What I said this. We have very unfair trade with China. We're going to have a trade deficit of $505 billion this year with China. A lot of that is because they devalue their currency. What I said to the New York Times is that we have great power, economic power over China. And if we wanted to use that, and the amount, and where the 45% comes in, that would be the amount based on their devaluations that we should get, What I'm saying is this. I'm not saying we do it. But if they don't start treating us fairly and stop devaluing and let their currency rise so that our companies can compete and we don't lose all of these millions of jobs that we're losing, I would certainly start taxing goods that come in from China. Who the hell has to lose $505 billion a year?
I'm sorry, sir. You lost me. But I do want to understand that.
Well, it's not that complicated, actually.
Then I apologize.
Okay.
But then I want to understand. If you don't want a 45% tariff, you say that wasn't the figure, would you be open or are you open to slapping a higher tariff on Chinese goods of any sort to go back at them?
Okay, just so you understand, I know so much about trade with China. Carl Icahn today, as you know, endorsed me. Many businessmen want to endorse me.
I know, but that's
Carl said, no, but he's somebody that these are the kind of people that we should use to negotiate, not the kind of people that we have who are political hacks who don't know what they're doing, and we have problems like this. So these are the kind of people. We should use our best and our finest.
All right,
now,
on that tariff, yes or
no, here's what I'm saying. China, they send their goods in. We don't tax. They do whatever they want to do. They do whatever they do. Okay. When we do business with China, they tax us. You don't know it. They tax us. I have many friends that deal with China. They can't deal. Number one, they don't want the product. And when they finally get the product, it is taxed. And if you look at what happened with Boeing, and if you look at what happened with so many companies that deal. So we don't have an equal playing field. I'm saying absolutely. We don't have to continue to lose $505 billion as a trade deficit for the privilege of dealing with China. I'm a free trader. I believe it. But we have to be smart, and we have to use smart people to negotiate. I have the largest bank in the world as a tenant of mine. I sell tens of millions of dollars. I love China. I love the Chinese people, but they laugh themselves. They can't believe how stupid the American leadership is.
So you're open to a tariff?
I'm totally open to a tariff. If they don't treat us fairly, hey, their whole trade thing is tariff. You can't deal in China without tariff. They do it to us. We don't do it. It's not fair trade.
Neil, let me say one thing about this. I'm a free trader. I supported NAFTA. I believe in the PTT because it's important those countries in Asia are an interface against China. And we do need China. Donald's right about North Korea. I mean, the fact is that they need to put the pressure on. And frankly, we need to intercept ships coming out of North Korea so they don't proliferate all this dangerous material. But what he's talking about, I think, has got merit. And I'm not putting that tariff or whatever he's saying here, but here's what I am saying.
I'm liking him tonight.
For too long, what happens is somebody dumps their product in our country and takes our people's jobs, and then we go to an international court. And it takes them like a year or two to figure out whether they were cheating us. And guess what? The worker's out of a job. So when they be found against that country that's selling products in here lower than the cost of what it takes to produce them, then what do we tell the worker? Oh, well, you know, it just didn't work out for you. I think we should be for free trade, but I think fair trade. And when countries violate trade agreements or dump products in this country, we need to stand up against those countries that do that without making them into an enemy. And I want to just suggest to you, how do I know this? Because so many people in my family worked in steel mills. And they didn't work with a white collar, they worked in a blue collar. And the fact is, those jobs are critical. They're hardworking members of the middle class, and they need to be paid attention to because they're Americans and they carry the load. So let's demand open trade, but fair trade in this country. That's what I think we need to do.
But on this point, if I may add something on this point, we are all frustrated with what China's doing. I think we need to be very careful with tariffs, and here's why. China doesn't pay the tariff. The buyer pays the tariff. If you send a tie or a shirt made in China into the United States and an American goes to buy it at the store and there's a tariff on it, it gets passed on in the price to the consumer. So I think the better approach, the best thing we can do to protect ourselves against China economically is to make our economy stronger, which means reversing course from all the damage Barack Obama is doing to this economy. It begins with tax reform. Let's not have the most expensive business tax rate in the world. Let's allow companies to immediately expense. It continues with regulatory reform. Regulations in this country are out of control, especially the Employment Prevention Agency, the EPA, and all of the rules they continue to impose on our economy and hurting us. How about Obamacare, a certified job killer? It needs to be repealed and replaced. And we need to bring our debt under control, make our economy stronger. That is the way to deal with China at the end of the day.
Neil, the problem with what Marco is saying is that it takes too long. They're sucking us dry, and it takes too long. It would just, you absolutely have to get involved with China. They are taking so much of what we have in terms of jobs, in terms of money. We just can't do it any longer.
He is right. If you put a tariff on the good, it's Americans who pay it.
Absolutely.
You looking at me?
Yeah.
Prices go higher for...
Hey, can I tell you what? It'll never happen because they'll let their currency go up. They're never going to let it happen. Japan, the same thing. They are devaluing. It's so impossible for you look at Caterpillar Tractor and what's happening with Caterpillar and Komatsu. Komatsu's a tractor company in Japan. Friends of mine are ordering Komatsu tractors now because they've devalued the yen to such an extent that you can't buy a Caterpillar tractor. And we're letting them get away with it, and we can't let them get away with it. And that's why we have to use Carl, and we have to use our great business people and not political hacks to negotiate with these countries.
Apart from the higher prices on consumers and people are living paycheck to paycheck, apart from that, there'll be retaliation.
Yeah.
So the soybean sales from Iowa, entire soybean production goes, the equivalent of it goes to China. Or how about Boeing right here within a mile? You think that the Chinese, if they had a 45% tariff imposed on all their imports, wouldn't retaliate and start buying Airbus? Of course they would. This would be devastating for our economy. We need someone with a steady hand being President of the United States.
Real quick, Senator. Yeah. Go ahead, Senator Cruz, and then we have to get to tax reform.
And we don't need a weak person being President of the United States, okay? Because that's what we'd get if it were I'll tell you what, we don't need that. We don't need that. That's essentially what we have now, and we don't need that. And that's why we're in the trouble that we're now. And by the way, Jeff, you mentioned Boeing. Take a look. They order planes. They make Boeing build their plant in China. They don't want them made here. They want those planes made in China. That's not the way the game is supposed to be played.
Thank you, Mr. Trump. Very briefly.
Hey, my name was mentioned. My name was mentioned here. The simple fact is that the plane that's being built here is being sold to China. You can, if you flew in with your 767, didn't you? Right there, right next to the plant.
No, the new planes. I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about in the future. They're building massive plants in China because China does not want Boeing building their planes here. They want it built in China because China happens to be smart the way they do it, not the way we do it.
When you head back to the airport tonight, go check and see.
Oh, yeah, I'll check for you.
Check it out.
Senator, briefly.
Thanks for coming back to me, Maria. Both Donald and Jeb have good points, and there is a middle ground. Donald is right that China is running over President Obama like he is a child, that President Obama is not protecting American workers, and we are getting hammered. You know, I sat down with the senior leadership of John Deere. They discussed how hard it is to sell tractors in China because all the regulatory barriers, they're protectionist. But Jeb is also right that if we just impose a tariff, they'll put reciprocal tariffs, which will hurt Iowa farmers and South Carolina producers and 20% of the American jobs that depend on exports. So the way you do it is you pass a tax plan like the tax plan I've introduced, a simple flat tax, 10% for individuals and a 16% business flat tax. You abolish the IRS. And here's the critical point, Maria. The business flat tax enables us to abolish the corporate income tax, the death tax, the Obamacare taxes, the payroll taxes, and they're border adjustable. So every export pays no taxes whatsoever. It's tax-free, a huge advantage for our farmers and ranchers and manufacturers. And every import pays the 16% business flat tax. It's like a tariff, but here's the difference. If we impose a tariff, China responds. The business flat tax, they already impose their taxes on us, so there's no reciprocal tariffs that come against us. It puts us on a level, even playing field, which brings jobs here at home. And as president, I'm going to fight for the working men and women.